Okay, so back in to continue to work on our path, but before we continue to work on this, there's a couple other things. There is back right now. We have a couple of things we need to check out, because as you can see right now, you can invest a lot of time and work into this stuff, and you can lose all of that work, and I want to make sure that nobody does lose all that work, so we need to check a couple of other things out first. So before we continue with this, and we are going to continue with this in just a little bit, I need everybody to come over to the path palette. It's the last of the palettes. We pretty much visited everybody in here except for actions, but it is the path palette that sits right here. And you can see, again, in the path palette that when it comes up, again, if you want to have a larger preview, because you can see, in that case, I can actually pick out an enormous amount of detail in that path palette, and I just find that it's surprising the amount of information that really does exist in these things if you make them large enough to really see them. If you want to get the bigger version, like I've got mine right here, again, remember it's this menu, drop-down menu right here, down to the panel options, and you want to click the large thumbnail and say OK. This, again, it does have enough information in it, and it doesn't really take up tons of room. But what I want to show you is this. You can see right now that this path is highlighted, and it has been highlighted the entire time we've been working on this. The minute we started the path, when we started that V, everything was going on here. You'll also notice that this thing is named Work Path. Now, in the older versions of Photoshop, Jose, this is probably in your case, is your Work Path thing in italics?
No.
No, it's regular?
Yeah.
We just thought it was in italics. But anyway, it should be in italics because what this is temporary. And what I mean by that is this. I need everybody to click outside of this. So just click underneath it like that, and you'll see that the path is no longer highlighted. You'll also notice that all the path lines on your image have now gone. Those things aren't there either. And I want everybody then to click again on the space bar to get the hand, come over, and we're going to start working on the 0. And so up at the very top, I'm going to click on my first point up at basically 12 noon, and look what happened. The entire work path is gone now. All the work that we did previous to this. Work path is always temporary. Now, as long as it stays selected, it will continue, your path will continue to build on it, and the work that we just did would continue to be happening on here as well. But it is very, 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 there's liability in this. And the liability in this is that you need to get in the habit of saving your paths as you go along, because this can happen. And this is awful when this does happen, especially if you really, because again, there are times where you can be doing path work and you get into 20 or 30 minutes and all of a sudden that work just goes poof, and you hate your life. So, and to avoid that, go back over to your history palette and click on the last state where it said close path, undo that new point. You'll see that work path is selected now, it is active again, but at this stage of the game, I would suggest that you save this path. So to do that, you come in the little flyout menu down here, and you can just come out to do Save Path. A dialog box will open it up, and I'm just going to put in what the name of what I've got in here is. So I'm going to do VIAC and say OK to that, and now that guy is saved. Now if I go over to start a new path, you'll see what happens is, I'm sorry, undo that, Command Z. Deselect this VIAC path, and then start your new path again. And what you'll see happens is it starts a brand new temporary work path view. Your old stuff is still there. We can still work with it, but this is actually now started a new work path. This new work path is just as temporary as the old one was, so just be careful. Realize that that's happening, right? So I want everybody to go ahead and complete the O for me, but do it, and this is an important one. When you are doing nested paths, you always want to start with the outside and work your way in. Now, in the case of an O like this, it's not as dire, but when you get into the image that we're going to actually use paths to knock out, things start to get really confusing. And people will start to work on the outside edge, and then all of a sudden they'll drift to the inside, and then it's just it's a nightmare. So if you always think of doing concentric circles, outside in, Photoshop will understand what it is you're doing, and it will actually nest these paths for you. And then when you go to use them, it'll work the way you think they should work. So at any rate, I just need everybody to go ahead and do the O for me. And when you complete the exterior, simply start on the interior. It'll create a second path and it'll allow you to do it. Okay, is everybody good on this? Have you completed this part? I can wait.
So after you do the outer one, you just close the path and start a new one.
Exactly, just start a brand new one, just as if it was another letter. The fact that it's inside the first path you did doesn't matter.
So will it continuously nest inside of itself?
It will. So if there was another circle that was on the inside of this, it'll continue to go down in there. Things can get a little confusing when we turn this into a selection if you end up doing that. But right now, in this case, it understands there's an outside and an inside border to this. So when we do make this a selection, which we are going to do, you'll see it'll actually select the O, and it doesn't get lost as far as that part goes or confused, just for that matter. All right, are we good on this? Okay. So paths, like many other things in Photoshop, whatever, can be copy and pasted. So now what I really want to do is I want to actually take this O in work path and I want to add it to this VIAC group that's actually up here. So you can do that, and it's just simple. You make your work path active. So again, you don't have to go in here and select anything. You don't have to select points. You don't need to do any of that. Simply come up to the Edit menu down to Copy. If you know the keyboard short for that, it's Command-C. Then select the path up above it, the VIAC one, and Command-V will actually paste. And you'll notice that what it did was it only pasted the inside one, the one that was actually active. If you want to get it all, hit Command-Z to undo that so we can go back. Go back to your work path. It's got both of these on here. We need to select both of these paths. To do that, you come over to, again, it's the double-headed arrow. Come over to the black arrow now, and you can actually click on it once to get the outside path. And then if you want to, you can hold down the Shift key and click on the next one. That will select both of the paths for you. Or you can actually come outside of it all and you can click and simply drag across. And as long as your selection hits any part of both of those paths, it will select them both. Then in this case, instead of doing a copy, I'm going to do a cut. You can do both. If you do a copy, it will leave the O down here and add it up here. If you do a cut, it will remove it from the work path and allow you to add it up there. I just want you to know you can do both. You can do copy or cut. In this case, I'm going to do cut, which is Command X, then back up to this VIAC and Command V to paste it back in, and you've actually now added it to the original path in Register. And again, as long as you save your work, paths are saved with your work forever. So you never lose these guys, they sort of stay with you. Is this sort of making sense what's going on, everybody? Okay, I want to do the last letter here really quick. Space bar, click, come into doing the M. Again, the P key to get the pen tool. We're going to click on the bottom right here. We're going to come up to the top and just finish the M for me. I don't need to actually walk you through that entire thing. Again, you'll see now, look at everybody, look at my screen really quick. You can see now I'm in trouble. No, because I've come down here and I don't have that corner down there that's not visible to me right now, so I can't complete this part. Simply hold down the space bar. You will temporarily get the hand, which will allow you to move that, and then you simply pick your path up again. You don't have to go anywhere else. So you simply click on this guy and you can go ahead and finish it out. I'm going to run into the very same problem when I get to the other side, but again, the space bar will always give you the temporary hand. So simply come back here so that you can move it back, and then you can continue it. So you don't ever have to orphan that guy, and you can finish it. Now what you'll notice in this case is I didn't generate a temporary work path because I had this one already selected. It was active, so it just put that path into this area. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so we can actually work with this guy right now. So we talked about loading selections before. The keyboard shortcut for it is not to really hover over the icon, or need to hover over the icon, but not really to pick it, but command click. So if you simply come up to the top here, hold down the command key and click, it loads what you just did as a selection. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, we're going to go back into the layers palette really quickly right here, and I am going to turn off the Viacom, the label thing that's right up here. I'm not going to actually use that guy. I'm going to actually add, though, a solid color onto this, just to see what this thing looks like. So to put a solid color on here, I'm just going to click on the adjustment layer, and I'm going to come up and say solid color, and in this case, I'm going to pick a bright red. So I'm going to do a 255 red, hit the tab key, 0 green, tab key 0 blue, and say OK. And again, you can see that what has happened here, because we had an active selection going, an active selection is always treated as a layer mask on whatever adjustment layer you're making, regardless of the kind of selection that you've got. Is everybody good on that part? So this is actually what we've got, and you can see if you double click on the hand and kick back out, it actually does a pretty remarkable job of it. I mean, it looks exactly the way this thing should actually look. So it's really, really compelling in terms of how would you have made a selection of just the type that said Viacom. There's no tool that you have that will select that. Nothing, right? So this was a quick way to actually do that part. However, what you need to realize is this, and so what I want everybody to do here, again, if you've got this set up correctly, and I'm going to show it to you again, if you come up to your preference menu and you come down to preferences, and it's down, I think, in workspace, let me see, let's go to interface, general, yeah, in general. This use legacy new document interface, this is one of the reasons I don't want you to use that interface, at least here in the beginning, is that it gives you options that you don't get in the new improved one. So if you've got that checked and say OK, now if we hit Command N or up to the file menu down to new, this screen will come up. And this is the one that's been in Photoshop forever that they've changed recently. And it's sad because in changing it recently, you didn't have the controls that we've actually got right now. And one of them is this, and that document type, if you click on that drop-down menu for document type, you will see that Viacom path is an option for us. And what it'll do is if you pick this Viacom path, is it will populate your dialog box. It'll populate this with all the exact dimensions of the original one. This doesn't just work for that, this also works for clipboard as well. So if you copy something off the internet, you've got an image, you copy it to your clipboard and you want to actually bring it into Photoshop, you simply come to this and under document type, you can actually click, I don't think I have anything on my clipboard, but it will actually be right up here. It's grayed out right now because I don't have anything on it. But it'll be sitting right up here, and you simply click on that and it populates everything exactly the size of your image that's on the clipboard, which is a beautiful thing. Does that sort of make sense? But anyway, I want to make a new document that looks exactly like this guy does right here. So it's going to be, again, I want a new document. I want something blank. I don't want anything I don't want to make a duplicate of this image. And you can see here that right now I've got a blank image, which is fine. If you click on this path layer, you'll notice that there is nothing there, which is also fine. If you come back to your original image, the one that has that Viacom on it, I'm going to click on the layers palette here again, this part right here. This is one of the other reasons that I do not use tab behavior. It's not that what I'm going to do is impossible to do with tab behavior, because you can do it. It's just not as intuitive as it is for me anyway, when I'm dragging from image to tab or image to tab. So what I want to do is I want to copy this layer and I want to put it on this new one. But I also want to do it in perfect register. So this is what happens. I need everybody to do this. We're not going to do it in perfect register first. I'm simply going to grab this adjustment layer here and I'm going to drag it. Again, I'm dragging the layer onto the other image and I'm going to let go. And you can see what happens is that it brings it over, but it doesn't bring it over and register where it was. This is not where it was. Where the image was in the beginning part. This is now moved. You can see I've even lost part of the M that's sitting down at the bottom. If you hit Command Z to undo that and instead grab that very same layer, drag it on top of your new image, hold down the Shift key before you let go. And if you do that, it will bring it in exact register. This works for everything. It's not just adjustment layers. This is also images. Everything that you do will come in exactly the same way. And if you've got images that are sized identical, like ours is, because we built it that way, then this stuff comes in exactly in register. Does that sort of make sense to everybody? So that part's great. The problem that I have, though, is this. And this is going to be an element of your homework. Now, I usually don't tell people this. I usually just let this fuck up on you, but I'm not doing that today because I don't feel like we've got, even though we've got so much, we have time. I'm more wanting you guys to focus on doing this whole process correctly, so we're just going to stay, I'm going to go down that path. Yeah. I know. You know, when you have to tell somebody about the joke that you just made, I did not tell you I am a horrible joke teller. Lousy, no, anyway. All right, so the problem with this is if you go to the path menu and look at it right now, we don't have a path. So what I've done is I created a path. I actually then used it to build the mask to actually do this, but then when I actually took it into another image, I've lost all of that work that I did with it, and I don't want to lose that work. That's actually a really bad mistake to make. So what's going to happen for your homework is there's two images that I'm asking you to use the pen tool to outline figures, and then move those figures to a different background. That's basically what the homework assignment is about. And it's exactly the moves that we've just made here. So when you do that, if you simply do what we've just done right now, you leave the path behind. The path stays in your old image. Does that sort of make sense? So we need to come up with a way that we can bring the path with us so that you attach the path with us, okay? So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo this because I am going to undo this, just the drag part of that. I'm going to come back into my Viacom path. This is our original file. This is the one that actually does have the path on it. It is connected. So what I want you to do now is I want you to activate the path. Make it active. And then you need to come back to your layers palette, and I'm going to actually make my layers palette. You need to see this, so you don't need to do this, just watch my screen. I'm going to pull my layers palette off, and I'm going to drag it to make it much larger so that you can see what actually happens right now. And you can see in this that I've actually got a color-filled layer that's got my mask on it, right? If I click, again, my path is active. If I click Add Layer Mask, it actually didn't add it to this guy. That's odd. Interesting. All right, this is what's happening. All right, so we're going to change things up here a little bit. So it's because this is an adjustment layer. It's the reason that this is not working the way that I want this to work is that this is an adjustment layer. So I'm going to ask you to throw this entire thing away for me really quickly. Not copy it, throw it away. We need to make just a regular conventional layer. So to do that, I'm going to I'm just going to add a background layer. So I'm simply going to click to add a blank layer. I am going to click on the foreground color to open up my color picker. I'm going to fill this with, I'm going to create my pure red again. So 255 red, 0 green, 0 blue. Say OK to that. Then again, because red is my foreground color, I've got a blank layer. This is an empty layer right here. You can see the transparency in it. Again, to fill with the foreground color, the keyboard shortcut is Option-Delete. This thing is now filled with red. It's completely red. To put the layer mask on it, again, I'm going to go back into my path folder right here, hold down the Command key and click on it. That loads it as a selection. I'm going to then come back to my Layers palette and click on Add Layer Mask, and I've got basically the same thing that I had before. Does this make sense to everybody? Are we all good on this?
No.
Okay, no, that's not, thank you. No, that's exactly what I want. Stop me. At what point did I lose you?
The part where you like loaded it or loaded that.
Okay, so here, no, let's just do it. Do you still have just a red layer?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Hang on one second. I'm just get rid of this mask. I'm going to get rid of that mask. I'm going to delete it. So you've got just a red layer like this, right? Okay, so I've got just a red layer. I'm back on my path palette right here. Again, you load any selection in the world. Anything can be loaded as a selection by hovering over the icon and holding down the Command key and clicking. So, if I hold down Command click, it loads it as a selection. Because I now have a selection, I can go back to my Layers palette, make sure that the red layer is active, and simply add a layer mask to it, and it does it. Did that work for you, Carson?
Sorry, she's talking to me also while you're talking.
Okay. Is one of us getting through?
For the option how do you do it on
If you don't want to do the keyboard shortcut, how do you fill this with a different color? You simply come up to the edit menu. So again, I've got this selected. You don't want the path, you don't want the mask selected, you want the image selected.
Okay.
Up to the edit menu, down to fill, and then you can either pick these three colors. You can pick your foreground, your background, or you can even bring the color picker up from in here and pick it there. So that would be the other way of doing it. All right, so are you good on this, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I want to carry the path with me, and if I were just to drag this over, it would bring over the image, which is the red. It would bring over the mask, which is this is a pixel mask, but I lose the path, and I want to keep the path with me. Does that make sense? So to do that, again, go back to your path palette. Make sure it's active. If it's not active, this won't do anything. You need to tell it which path you want to actually attach to this layer, which is what we're going to do. And then come back into the layer palette, select this layer that we're actually talking about. Again, I'm going to pull mine to the side so that we have more room on here so you can see what's happening, so that I can see this room right here. And click on Add Layer Mask again. And what this has just done is it's added this. This is the path. This is an editable path. This has got all the points on it. This has got everything that existed on the one that was in our tool palette. It's all sitting right here. Does that make sense? Which is a great thing. So here, this is how this works and why this is important. We're going to click and drag this entire layer onto our other image. Hold down the Shift key and let go to bring it in. And you can see it's got all three of them right now. It's got it's got what they call, so this mask now that you guys have always worked with before, this is a pixel mask, but you can actually still go and you can paint on it, you can blur it, you can invert it, you can do all of those things. This, however, is points. These are paths. So if you click on this path, if you actually go now to the path menu of our new file, you'll actually see, make sure that this guy's actually selected, you'll see it's sitting right here in your path menu. So you've actually brought it with you. Does that make sense? So it's not been orphaned. Are we good on this?
How did you get the past copy again?
How did I, in the original part?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go back to the original part because there's a couple other things I want to look at there. So let's go back and look at those. So if you've done all this, you can actually go back in history and just get rid of doing that drag over. Let's go back to our original Viacom, this guy right here. I'm going to put my layer guy back on, so it's sitting back on here. So basically, guys, what I've got going right here, let me get it wide enough so that you can see it, is I have two masks on this red layer. I've got one that's made of pixels, it's this one right here, and I've got another one that's made from the path. It's actually made from points. This guy is actually editable. Does that make sense? So for instance, if we can actually hide the pixel mask. To hide it, simply hold down the Shift key and click on it, and it hides it, but you'll notice that we've still got this red layer as masked, because it's being masked by this path right here. Does that make sense? Then finally, remember the tool over here that allows you to edit your path. Come back over to the Direct Selection tool, the white one. Because we are now working on this path, if you zoom into this, you can actually see it. Jose, it's going to be hard for you to see because yours is a black line, but you can see it's right here. You can actually click on this. It selects the path. I can click on a point, and I can actually modify the entire thing. What I am modifying is this pixel mask right here. But it is a pixel mask. It is not, you can't paint on this. So for instance, hit the B key to get a brush. And you'll notice that if you're on this pixel mask right here, that you shouldn't be able to brush anything. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't paint anything because it's a pixel content. This is all about just holding the paths. This is not pixel anymore. Does that make sense what's going on here? Another reason this matters, I'm going to throw away this, well first off I'm going to undo that. I'm going to go back in time to undo all of that part. I'm going to throw away the pixel mask right now, and you can see, you can always tell they're pixel masks because they're always done like this. They're always grayed out like this, so that the mask areas, what's always shown to you is you'll always see the path like this. They always are on gray backgrounds, and then you spot the path, and then whatever's inside the path ends up being in white. And that's the only, you don't get any other shades of gray in here, you don't get any colors in here. It's either an all or nothing thing. But if we throw this guy away, and delete it, and click on the, hold down the Shift key and click on the regular pixel mask again, you can actually see that this is indeed working exactly the way this is supposed to be working. Let's see what we can do about this. Yeah, let's do this, because this will matter. I'm going to load this pixel mask as a selection. The same way we've loaded everything in this class as a selection. Hold down the Command key and click on it, and it loads it as an active selection. And then I am going to, again, make sure that the red is selected. I'm going to jump that to its own layer, Command-J. And you can see what happens is that it puts actually the icon up here on its own blank layer, which is great. I'm now going to actually move my mask up to the same layer, because what I really want is a mask and image content to be the same. Does that make sense? So to do that, simply grab your mask and drag it up to the next layer and let go. Now the reason this looks solid right now is because we've got a red type on a red background, so throw your red layer away. And what we see is this is now one for one, and they are connected. And the reason they're connected, and I know they're connected, is because of this little chain link right here. So with that little chain link on there, if I decide to transform this image, which I'm going to do right now, Command-T to bring up the transform dialog box, I'm going to click on the length between the width and the height, and I'm going to make this thing half its size. So I'm going to do 50%, and I'm going to make it smaller. And what you'll see is happen, you can go ahead and say, hit the check marks and say OK to that. What you'll see is happen is that it not only made the type, it not only made my pixel content smaller, my image smaller, it also made the mask smaller as well. And these two are in perfect sync with each other still. Does that make sense, everyone?
When I did the Command-J,
Yeah.
it did not create the layer. It just created, it basically just created the
Did you make the selection first? A selection first?
Yes. Add the selection.
Yeah, so you're still good to go. Is that sitting up on the top? Is it just the... Okay, we'll throw both those guys. Yeah, so it is selected. Make sure that that guy's active. What's above that? Is that the type? Okay, so we can click on the guy again. Command-J again. Oh, it's right there, so then drag this guy on top. And throw the original guy, the solid blank. Okay, the reason that this is important is, or because we do this as well in this class, is it doesn't have to be that way. If you hit Command-Z to undo that, you can break the link between the chain. And if you break the link between the chain, I'm going to actually ask you to select the mask first and transform it, Command-T. Again, I'm going to click on the link between width and height, and I'm going to make it 50% as well and say OK to that. And what you'll notice is now has happened is that it's made the mask smaller, but the image has not been changed at all. The image is still as big as it's ever been, but the mask got made smaller because I broke this link between the two and I transformed the mask. Does that make sense to you guys, what's going on here? I'm going to hit Command-Z to undo that again, or hit Cancel. And now I'm going to actually select the pixel content, the image, and I'm going to transform it and not the mask. So again, Command-T to bring that up, click on the link between width and height, change this to 50%, say OK to that. And now what has happened is that I've made my image smaller, but the mask is still the same size, the big size. Does that make sense, everyone? And the reason I'm bringing this out is that the same thing holds true for my path. So really quickly, just go ahead and say OK to this. You can do the check mark on this to say OK to this. Hold down the Shift key and click on to get rid of your temporary mask right now, and then go back to your path layer and click on the path. And if you click on this path, you will actually see that not only is my image no longer in register, the path is no longer in register with the image, because I made the image 50% smaller. I didn't change the path. Does that make sense? That's problematic. All of this is problematic. So to solve all of this, you want to be loading your paths onto your layers, even if you turn them off so you don't see them. Because any transforming, any copy and pasting, any moving to another image, any of that, it all goes with it, and it all stays connected. Does that make sense? So we're going to do that. Go over to your history. Go back to your last free transform. Go back before that, where it says unlink mask. That's where I want to go back to, that part right here. So again, with my layer sitting right here, I've got my image. I've got a pixel mask. But now, if I select my path and then go back to layers and add another layer mask, it now attaches my path to this. Now, this is an interesting scenario. In this case, my mask that's made for my path is connected to the image, but my pixel mask is not. That chain link is not there. So I need to bring it back. So if I bring it back here, now all three of them are linked together again. Then I can drag this entire layer to my other blank image, hold down the Shift key and let go. It has now brought in my pixel content, my image. It's brought in my layer mask, pixel mask. It's also brought in my a mask that's actually made with paths. Does that make sense to everyone? I'm going to go really quickly to the path palette here. You can see this is now a copy of it. I'm actually going to copy this path. So I'm going to click and drag it down and simply make a copy of it just by doing that. I just made a copy of it. This is still the mask. This is actually the copy of it that I made. You can see it sitting right there. I'm going to click outside of this to stop everybody from being active. I'm going to go back into my layers palette, and now I'm actually going to do a transform on this entire layer. So Command-T to bring up the transform dialog box. Click on the link between width and height. Let's put in 25. Let's put in 50 here to make it smaller. Say OK to that. What you'll notice has happened is that it's made the image smaller. It's made my pixel mask smaller, but it's also made my path smaller. I just transformed my path. I resized it. If you go back and you look at your path palette, go ahead and say OK to that, to the transform. You'll notice now I've got the original big version of it, but I've also got the smaller version. And this smaller version, all those points and paths are still completely intact. Does that make sense to you guys? So it's just a way, if you're doing this kind of work, you want to save this work with the image that it's modifying. You don't want to orphan that stuff away. So we're doing this very same thing. When you do your homework, you have the option of doing this, which I would suggest you do, to actually connect the path to the layer to then bring the body onto a new background. Your other option is to take the background and bring it onto the body work that you did all the path work on. That would be the other way to still not orphan the path work that you've done. But I've had people actually spend 2 hours on building these paths, copy the image over, they made a selection out of the path, they put it on, it was just a regular mask that they put it on, they drag it to a new background, and then they closed the body file, and they didn't save it because they didn't think they needed it, and all that path work, 2 hours is gone. Yeah, not good. All right, other questions about this? Bursar, please, can we do something meaningful? I'm tired of looking at Viacons, and you can close all this up, guys. You don't need to save any of it.
So I know how to load the selection, but how do you copy the password to that file again? Because when I was looking on the add vector mask, it wasn't loading with the gray background.
If the mask is, no, right the show board.
So I would select, load the selection,
Right.
go here,
Yeah.
and then I was trying this. Oh, okay. I didn't do that before.
Yeah, and maybe because you've got a selection going, you don't even need to have a selection going, so the command need to deselect, go back in history to get rid of that thing that you just added. And then just hit command D to deselect, go to your path menu. You don't even have to load any of this as a selection, you simply need to have the path active. So this path up here, let's try just another one. It's just active, it doesn't need to be a selection, and then go back to your layer again, and simply, if it wasn't there, you can come back out later, just click on load again, and it'll load it. Make sense? So, first, please, let's just do something with this. I am tired of, Viacom, who cares? Okay, here we go. So, there is another image that I would like you to open, and this is actually not going to take us through some path work. This is going to allow us to revisit the stuff that you did for your last assignment. So it's this file again, it's in week number 4. It's the one that is an M_7027_02191.cr2. And if you go ahead and double click on that guy and just bring it in, we don't have anything to change anything here, so I'm not going to modify that. That's not what this whole part is about. And I am going to simply open this up as a smart object. Again, if this does not read smart object for you, or doesn't read as open object for you guys, you click on the hyperlink that's at the bottom of your screen. It's this checkbox right here. If you check this, that button right there will always read as open object. If you don't check it, it will read as open image. So if you want to go back and forth between those two, regardless of which one is set, this is now set to open object. If I hold down the shift key, it changes to open image. If it said open image, because I didn't have that thing checked in that dialog box, holding down the shift key would change this to open object. Yes?
I'm getting like a pop-up, and I clicked before for it to like not show again, like every time I open something from camera.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's not annoying. I have no idea what it is, but I would just say, don't show this to me ever again.
I said that like 3 times and it popped up every time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, again, there's wonky interface stuff. Are you at the latest, greatest, or are you maybe one behind?
I'm like maybe 2
Yeah, okay, but that's part of the problem. When they did this original new dialog box, the checkbox that I keep showing you guys that says, don't show that to me ever again, didn't work. And the Photoshop community rioted, and they fixed it pretty quick. So anyway, that's probably what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up as an object. It doesn't really matter what we do with this. And the image actually opens up, and I need to select this image. So I am going to use the pen tool to do part of this. Clearly, I'm not going to do the hair with the pen tool, but I want you guys to do with me. I've got one last thing to show you in this, and it's just a way to speed this process up a little bit. And then we're going to spend the rest of the day. So we got like 35 minutes here to finish just building the selection of this person. Okay? So this is what I'm going to show you. The first thing I'm going to show you is this. If you zoom in to the bottom of this girl's skirt down here at the bottom, there's 2 things that I want you to keep in mind, and it's this. I'm going to actually try to do the pen tool. I'm going to draw a path along this outside edge right here. If I'm slightly on the inside of the skirt and I build a mask out of it, will you ever know? No. You'll not know. You'll just think it's the edge of the skirt. If I'm slightly outside of the skirt and I'm actually in the background space and I make a mask out of that, will you know? Yes, you will, because you'll see a baby little line of the mask that's of the background that's surrounding this whole thing. So the trick is you want to try to get on that line as perfectly as you can, but if you have to make a mistake, You want the mistake to be in the part you want to keep, in the good part, not in the bad part. If I draw, so for instance, if I drew a line even well inside this, and I just did a line up there and knocked this out, you would never know. But if I drew a line out here on this outside here, did it up like that, and knocked that out, you would see this line of background that's surrounding this. Does that make sense? The last thing I'll tell you is this, and it's what I always think about when I'm doing paths. Paths excel at actually doing curves, so you want to use them for curves. So for me, the analogy that I always use for this is hills and valleys, hills and valleys. So this is a hill, this is a valley, this is a hill, this is a valley. I need to actually, where do I put the points on this guy? And the trick to it is that you want to always put the points on the sides of the mountain. You want to use the curve to describe this. You do not want to put the curve at the top of the mountain to describe this. You are wasting the power that's only giving you half of it. So again, it's always you're looking for hills and valleys. The same thing happens down here. You're looking for a point here and a point here so that one line can describe that curve. And then this line area in here tends to almost be straight line. So again, you would do another point here to come around to this point here to come around to this point. Does that make sense? So I'm constantly looking for the sides of the mountain. That's what you're thinking the whole time you're doing this. Never put it on the top of the mountain, never put it in the bottom of the valley. That's not where you want them. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to hit the P key to get the pen tool, but we run into a problem right away. And the problem I'm running into right away is that I can't get the pen tool. Can you guys, I'm sorry. Let me scoot this whole thing up a little bit, if I can. Can you guys see this now? The problem is that I want to start my path at the bottom of that skirt, but I can't get to the bottom of the skirt. So to get to the bottom of the skirt, you need to use the pasteboard. It is the F key. Hit it once. This takes you to what is called the pasteboard, and you can see what it basically looks like. Again, if you hold down your spacebar command and the option key, you can zoom out, and you can see that your image, again, I'm just holding down the spacebar now to move around, your image is now on this, like, it's no longer, we don't have the little stoplights up at the top again. This is an artboard to be working on. You can see I've got the pen tool, and I can go well outside of this guy, and I can actually draw a path down here in the whole pasteboard area down in here. So it lets me get well off of my image so that I can actually start the image, and I can do parts like here where I actually go outside of the image. Does that sort of make sense for everyone? Okay, so I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that point that I laid down. I'm going to zoom into the bottom of the skirt. I need everybody to do this with me. I'm going to show you one last trick in here really quick, and then we're off to the races. So I am going to start my point right here. Again, I don't bite off more than I can really chew, but this is another trick that you should know. Most of you guys, if you pull a point up here for the second part up here, you would say to yourself, well, that's a straight line. It isn't. The world is organic. Straight lines don't exist. So even though this looks like possibly a straight line to you, even if it is a straight line to you, make it a little organic. So for me, what I do in this situation here, because otherwise you start spotting when you use this to knock out, you'll start spotting these like really hard edges that shouldn't really exist. So for me, I'm going to come up here to the top like this. I'm going to click and drag out just a little bit and put just a little curve in it. Minor. But this is the last trick that I'm just going to show you, the one to get it through really quick. With this little bitty minor curve actually put in here, it's conceivable. I take it back. I'm going to show you this in another spot because there's a better place for it. So I'm going to come back here again, hold down the Option key, get rid of this point, hold down the space bar to get the hand to continue out, and I'm simply going to continue my path. So I need everybody to start pulling a path out. Typically what I'll do is keep one hand on my Option key, keep another hand on my, what is that? So I've got something really weird this is going on with my computer right here. I've got something going on here. Again, if you hit an anomaly like this, simply go back in history. And I am locked up. So you guys continue this process. I have got to actually force quit Photoshop. Say what? No, you're doing the whole body. But you're at a point where I need you to stop because I need to talk to everybody about exactly where you are. So let me get back to where you guys are again. Okay, everybody look at my screen really quick just so you know, and then I'm going to let you continue on. So this is exactly the problem area that I was talking about when I said you need to do your path from the outside in. A lot of people come up to the top of the skirt and they get to this point right here, and then they continue on into the skirt and they come back and they do this little knockout part right here, and then they're right back on top of the path, and that is not correct. You run right back into yourself. Again, the trick is to always stay to the outside, and then once your outside is completely made, then go to the inside. So what you do is your path comes up to this point right here, and then you go out to do the fingers, and you continue all the way around, and then you come back and you do this little path cut out at the very end. Does that make sense? So you're always staying as far to the outside as you can stay. So I wish I could tell you that there was a way to, while you're doing this, watch movies. You can't do that. You can do drugs, you can listen to music, you can drink. But unfortunately, you have to continue to watch this screen, which, what can I tell you? And this is where you will see, after you've done enough of this, that having a mouse is actually huge. All right, I want everybody to look up at my screen really quickly here. I'm just going to come back into this little part right here. I want to have a quick conversation about what's going on at this juncture, at the V of this girl's fingers right here. Now, I realize that this is also soft, a little bit out of focus, which is fine. There's probably motion in here is what it really is. But nonetheless, if you look at your fingers like this right there, is that a point? Does it come to a perfect point? No, it's actually it's a U shape right here. You have to put that U shape in here or it becomes obvious what you did. So I'm going to stick a point right here. I'm going to go immediately to the other side and click to drag out to give myself that little loop that's in the back part. And then I'm just going to continue my process. And then the observant ones in here will realize that I'm doing something that I haven't talked to you guys about. And then you'll get angry because I haven't showed you how I can get there quicker. So I am going to show it to you in just 1 second. Little things like this. Look up at my screen really quick. You see where the thumbnail actually goes on the outside? Lazy people will just chop that right off. Don't. That's what makes this thing believable when you actually use it. So when you get to those things like that, instead of wishing that it wasn't there and forcing you to lay down another point, rejoice in the fact that that is what is going to make this thing actually look amazing. So again, you can see right here, I'm looking for the sides of the mountain, as it were. I should probably come up with another metaphor for that. Okay, this is the next part that I want to show you. I need everybody to look up at my screen really quickly. So far, and again, for the first 5-6 years that I ever used this tool, whatever, I actually did every single point that I laid down. I came back to that point, held down the Option key, clicked to get rid of the second handle. However, you will find that the way the tool is really designed to work is that if you have got a sort of a continuous line that the tool itself can anticipate, it doesn't anticipate, that's a wrong way of putting it, but the nature of the tool, the way it works, doesn't require that you get rid of all of those secondary handles. The changes need to be relatively subtle, but watch what happens here. Watch my screen here. I need everybody to watch this part just to see what's going to happen and how it works for me. So I'm coming up to this part right here, and again, I'm going to click to put a small amount of curve in that. But as long as this handle is actually right on the same edge line that I'm going for, I don't need to get rid of it. So you can just go to the next line up, and you can click and continue. And again, as long as this handle stays on that part, you're fine. But then when you get to a point like this, that doesn't work anymore. You need to click and start a new point again. So again, does that make sense where I'm talking about here? So when you'll end up with places where you've got to do radical changes in this. But a lot of time, as long as your curve actually stays along the line that you're doing, you don't need to get rid of that point. You can simply continue the line. But you will get to places like this where that can't happen. So in here, you'll notice that there are these little indents in here. If you gloss over those indents, this tool does not become, it doesn't give you the true organic nature that we're actually looking for it to do. So once I get up to that point, I've actually got to stop, get rid of the second control handle, and actually then shape this the way it should be shaped. So you go back to the old school method of doing it, and then you can actually continue on again. And so what I need everybody to do, if they can, is to get up close to the girl where the hair hits this girl. So that's the place that we're looking to try to get to. So for instance, this point right here, I cannot do that. Any line that I would pull out from here, when I pull this line out from here, it's not going to allow me to follow that curve because the handle that I'm drawing out is not following that curve. So if I click and make that shape the way it should be, I've got to get rid of this second point in order to continue off in this other direction. So Carson, when you guys are doing this stuff in Illustrator, does it function like this?
Pretty much, except you would click the point to get rid of it instead of.
So you simply click on the point. You don't need to add the Option key, and it just gets rid of the point.
Yeah.
You can try that in this. Does it work?
I tried it.
It doesn't work. Oh, all right. And the second thing I'll say, guys, is that really let the tool do its job. You don't need to put down 1,000 points. I see a lot of people do this, and they'll put a point like every 1/8 of an inch, and that just defeats the purpose. You're just at that shit way too long. So, let it do its job. Wow, notice the chromatic aberration in this? Look at that. All of this, look at this. This is all chromatic aberration. Shitty lens. Wait, that was my lens. Okay, so for me, I've gotten up to the hair. How are you guys doing? Close. Not close. Step down. All right, do me a favor, because I want you to continue to work on this, but I need to get this done so that I can show you what to do with this shit before we leave, okay? So I need to keep moving on. So I need everybody to look over my screen really quick just to see what I'm going to do at this point. So I've made it up to the hair. I'm going to zoom back out. So I've gotten up to the hair on one side. I'm going to zoom back out so that you can see what's going on here. Now from this point on, I can't use the pen tool to select the hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to go across her body. You don't need to worry about what's going on in here. I'm going to go across her body to where the hair actually starts on the opposite side. Does that make sense? So again, I'm going to then zoom into this edge over here. And this is where it begins, right down here. It's on this lower part right here. Simply take that line across. It's okay. You don't need to do anything else about that line. Just goes over to the other side and clicks. And then I'm going to just continue. So you guys need to continue as well. Okay, I need everybody to look up at my screen again. So now I've actually hit the point where her arm is going off. It's the edge of my image. You can continue to lay points out here on the pasteboard. So you can come all the way out here. This point is now, I'll show you. I'm going to zoom all the way back. This is now completely outside of my image. I'm now on the pasteboard, and I'm still working with my tool. So it still works on the outside. So in order to come back, I want to reestablish the angle to come back into this. I'm simply going to lay points out on the pasteboard. So I'm going to come all the way out here, and I'm just working my way around so that I can actually start that part again. This shit doesn't matter. This is all going to get trimmed out. Photoshop's smart enough. It'll know it doesn't need to keep this stuff out here, but it just gives me a better place to go back into it. So keep going. All right, and then everybody take a quick peek one more time at my image. So I have gotten around my entire body, but I need to come back to complete my path. Again, I can simply do that work on the outside of this. It doesn't need to be, I don't care. So I'm just laying points down here and bringing this all the way back around to come back up and complete my path. Now at this stage of the game, again, what I would tell you is that this is now your work path. I would save this guy. So a number of ways to save it. You can click on that save path like I showed you. You can also simply double click on the path and it will offer to name it for you. And I'm going to call mine body. Are we good on this so far? So where are you guys at? Are you close? Are you on the other side yet? Have you gone across the other side? Then do me a favor. If you've got one side of this going, let's keep that side of it going. Just come to the outside to finish this guy really quickly because we've got some other stuff to do. So you can just, like I say, if you've gotten one side, so if you've gotten, for instance, this side over here done, simply come across and do a circle around and complete your path. You'll see what's going on, but I want to get to this other part as well. That'll be good. All right, and again, save that path, double click on it, do something so that you don't lose it. Okay, so this is a good beginning for me. I'm actually going to go ahead and load this as a selection right now. So I'm going to command click to load this as a selection. If I were to use this to knock the body out right now, it would actually give me much too sharp an edge. That pen tool is incredibly precise. It's too precise. So when you're using this tool, you've got to soften it up. The precision allowed me to follow these lines really well, but you've got to soften this up slightly. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that first. Before we do this, I want you to save this selection. So come up to the Select menu, come down to Save Selection, and call this Pen Sharp. And say OK. It saved the selection. The selection is still going. If you come over to your channels palette and drop down to the bottom, you'll actually see it got saved right down here at the bottom. It's a channel. It's now called Pen Sharp. But now what I want you to do is come up to the Select menu, down to Modify, and down to Feather. What Feather will do is it'll put in a little softening on that edge. It won't keep it so pen tool sharp. And I'm going to suggest we feather this by a single pixel. So I'm going to put in 1 pixel and I'm going to say OK to that. And then I'm going to save that selection as well. I'm going to come up to the Select menu and I'm going to come down to Save Selection and I'm going to call this Pen Soft. And say OK. Command D to deselect. And then if you come over to your channels palette and click on Pen Sharp, you'll actually see what the difference is. So I've actually zoomed into mine and you can see these incredibly sharp, hard cut lines. But now if you click on Pen Soft, you'll see that that edge got knocked off just a little bit. Oh, it's a little bit softer. If it turns out that this is not soft enough, I simply go back to my path, load it as a selection, go back up to Modify, Select, Modify, Feather, and do a 2-pixel feather, or a 1.5 pixels. Does that make sense, everyone? What's going on? Okay, so this is the beginning of this, but now I need to deal with the hair. I don't have the hair, and I got 10 minutes to do the hair. So if you guys want to try and do this with me, that's great. But I want to make sure we get this on the recording, so I'm pretty much going to get this quick. Are we good on this? All right, so again, you can try to do this with me or you can watch. I feel awful. I feel like we should have another half hour so that we can actually finish this proper. But I can't ask you guys to do that or expect you guys to do that or so at any rate. This is going to be sort of a rehash of what we did for Sunny. All right, so to do that, I need to find the best way where the hair really separates the background. That's what I'm really looking for here. So this is what my red channel looks like, and I actually feel like I got reasonably good separation. This is what my green channel looks like. Again, I'm only looking for edge contrast here, and I got a little bit darker in the background, so that part helped me a little bit more. The blue is a little bit lighter in the background, and I've got the same hair in there, so it's going to be between the green and the red. And again, I'm feeling like the green is a better one, so I'm actually going to copy the green channel. So I've got to copy the green channel right here. I'm going to zoom into this hair. I'm going to lay down 2 points for this. So I'm going to go to my color sampler tool. I'm going to click 1 and I'm going to drop it. I'm going to drop it right up in here. I'm close to a 255 up here really quickly already. It's showing me a 1%. I'm going to click on my drop-down menu to go to RGB. It's in the 254s. And then I'm going to pick a lighter tone in my background, something about like that area right there. So I'm feeling reasonably good about this. Command L to bring up the levels dialog box. Again, I'm going to change this to give me an RGB readout. Then I'm going to take my black point and I'm going to bring it up until I get close to 0, but then stop. I'm close. I'm going to go to my arrow keys and actually tap that in. So that's now reading 000. I'm actually going to go to my white point now. You can see it's still at 254, so it doesn't need to be moved a whole lot. It's going to be like a single click to get this back. And that part's given me what I want now. I'm going to back out a little bit. I'm going to hit the brush to get a brush, make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to sacrifice some of this hair right here in the middle. I don't care if I actually lose that part, so I'm going to actually make an overlay brush. I'm going to change its hardness. I don't want to completely spray soft, but I do need a softer edge. So about a 50% hardness on that. Click to get rid of this guy. Hit Command Z because I'm painting with white. Hit my X key so that I'm painting with black. And actually pull this part down a little bit like that. You don't need to worry about any of that stuff up there. I don't need to worry about a whole lot that's down there. I do have something that's right over in here that I need to get. Then the rest of this, hit an X to get my overlay brush. I'm actually going to make this a softer brush as well, just to feather things out to the very edge of this. So I'm getting close to that, and then I'm just going to feather this part out. I'm going to leave the rest of that edge where it is. I don't need to worry about anything else in here. I'm going to do the same thing on this side over in here. Again, because I'm overlay, I could actually come over that a little bit and it would actually take care of that for me. I'm going to hit this a couple of times right down here to go ahead and bring that in. And then I actually got this far to this in my path on the last one. I've got a little bit that I've got to get to right there. So this part's actually working really good for me right now. I'm going to zoom out slightly. I'm going to hit the L key to get a lasso tool, and then I'm just going to draw inside this line that I've actually made using that. Again, I'm staying away from the edges, so I'm simply selecting this area. This is now the area that I want to actually work with. White is my foreground color. Option delete fills that with white. Command D to deselect. I can now use this image right here. There's one other thing I want to hit here really quickly. B key, hit the X key to get rid of that. And there's also another one right here that's going to cause me an issue. And there's an undo. There's another part right there. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. This again is now exactly the temporary shoulder thing that we did before, so I'm going to load this as a selection, command click to load this as a selection, and then I'm going to go to my soft version of this. This is the soft version. This is what I did with my pen tool in the soft version. And then again, I've got a brush selected, so I'm going to change my blending mode back to normal. White is my foreground color. You don't need to worry about how big your brush is because the selection is controlling where this will go. And I'm simply painting this part in now. So now I've added the hair to my path.
Can you go back to when you selected the head?
Yep, hang on one second. So are you this far?
Like right before you got that. Like when you made the whole head like.
Oh, okay, sure. So I started here with the, that's right here. Yeah, I see where I am. So I used the overlay brush to paint the outline of her head. So just to get to the edges here to make the edges better, right? And I could paint it inside here using just a regular brush. I could paint out the rest of this. It's just faster to make a selection of it and just fill the whole thing with white. So again, it's the lasso tool, the L key. And then you simply draw, again, along the lines that you made. You don't want to go too close to the edge, but I know that I've used the overlay brush, and it allows me to not have to color in the lines, all right? So then I'm just coming around here to get all of that part. So I've just got this one big selection that's now made inside of her head. And then again, white is my foreground color, so Option Delete fills that with white, Command D to deselect. And then I'm simply loading this as a selection. To do that, I hover over the icon, hold down the Command key, and click. Anywhere in this image now that is white will allow me to paint with any color I want, or because I'm working in a channel, I can only paint shades of gray. It'll allow me to paint, but it will not allow me to go outside of those lines. I can't, for instance, I can't paint something up in here. It won't let me do that because the selection is controlling where I paint. So then again, I'm going to go to my soft one version right here. Hit the B key to get a brush, make sure it's a normal brush. I don't really care what sort of edge it's got because the selection is controlling where this all happens. And see this little thing that came in there? That was something that I'd gotten rid on my last image. I can actually go back and fix it though, so it's not the end of the world. So that seems to be correct for me. That part is actually worked right now. Command D to deselect, hit the X key to get rid, to go back to black, just to get rid of that little part right there. And then finally, I've got one mistake right here. It's this little part right here. So I'm gonna make my brush way smaller. Make sure it's a completely hard brush. And I'm simply gonna tap this out. And now I've got the body selected. So the pen tool did the heavy lifting for the body part, and then the way that we actually selected using channels last time did that part. So let's see how it works. So again, at this stage of the game, I would save this, but I'm just going to load this as a selection. Command click to load it as a selection. Then I'm going to go all the way back up to the top to select my total RGB guy. I'm going to go back to my layers palette, and I'm going to play. So for instance, I'm going to add a black and white layer to this. So I'm going to make everything black and white. She is now black and white. The background is actually now in color. Now that doesn't seem to be really dramatic to me, so I'm simply going to invert this mask so that she is actually in color and my background is black and white. But what I want you guys to look at is this fucking edge. This is flawless. Does this make sense, what's going on here? Are we good on this part here? Again, this thing comes into use a lot. Whenever, this is another perfect case, an example of it right here. When you're doing this, it wouldn't help you to do the hair at all. It's great for the body though. It's a great way to actually do that part. You need both of these tools, both those techniques to actually build this mask and to make it an effective mask. So are we good on this part? Okay. I would strongly suggest you guys finish this out. I'm not going to ask you to do it for your homework because you've actually got homework to do. And again, this is not about piling stuff on. I don't want to be doing that to you guys. But you're already deep into this, so I would go ahead and finish this technique if you can. You see, I just did that in 7 minutes. It'll take you a little longer probably, but you can easily do this. This is a technique we're going to use over and over and over and over again. Are there questions about this? Are we feeling pretty good about this? So I'm feeling really good about this because you guys keep showing up. No, it's really true, right? It's the thing that keeps me up at night. It's the, okay, I've thrown so much down and it's just like overload and you're just like, no, fuck this, it's not worth it. I mean, how many credits am I doing for this? No, I'm out. I'm going to go back and I'm going to be at the pool. I'm going to be at the beach all summer long. Fuck this, I'm not doing this, whatever. Anyway, it is my greatest fear. But I can't begin to tell you how I just, you guys are so serious about this stuff, and I love that part of it. And so you show and you do the work, and so thank you. And I'll see you guys on Wednesday. All right. Oh, one other thing really quickly, just so that you know, because I'm still on the pasteboard right now. To get out of the pasteboard, hit the F key a second time. It will take you to the black pasteboard. Hit the F key one more time, and you'll get back to the little stoplight guys, and you can close your file up, and you can quit. You can do all that other stuff.